Today, we hope to share the heart behind the uniform and why we believe it is an important part of the work God has entrusted to us as educators and parents. We're here today to talk about the uniforms and the blessing that it is to our school community. Amber, I believe you have the first question.
Yes. As someone who works closely with our youngest students, what do you notice when children come to school in uniform?
We know that uniforms can create a visible transition from home life to school life. It also gives children an understanding that there's a difference between their at-home wardrobe, their school wardrobe, and it also helps communicate the expectation of being at school versus being at home.
And students in uniform tend to settle into learning quickly. Uniforms also help reduce distractions in the classroom and students comparing themselves with one another. And they hopefully help with less struggle in getting your children out the door as well in the morning. A shared dress code really also too helps create a sense of belonging and community in the classroom.
So how does the uniform contribute to the overall atmosphere of the classroom?
Well, as teachers, we all know there's a difference between a uniform day and a spirit wear day and a Viking day, right? So students, by wearing a uniform, it definitely supports more order and supports the learning environment best. Children will rise to the expectations communicated around them, and a uniform helps serve that purpose, definitely.
It also creates consistency and predictability in their day. The goal isn't perfection, but it's cultivating a certain habit. And there's just a definite difference in decorum in the classroom when the students are in uniform versus when they're dressed up.
Yes. Uniforms aren't just about what students wear. They also offer daily opportunities for character formation.
Okay, ladies, from your perspective as both a teacher and a mother, how do uniforms support the formation of character and personal responsibility in students?
Okay, well, one of the most important character qualities that we want to cultivate in our children is obedience. And we want them to fall in love and obey God first. And we as parents are a representation of that in our home. And then they learn to obey us right next. And so the uniform gives an opportunity for them to obey in a small way, God and their parents as well. And then, of course, the KCA community, because we are asked to wear a uniform to school. So they get an opportunity to practice obedience and submission in small ways that will later learn to bigger ways to obey. And another way that students learn personal responsibility with a uniform is that they learn that not every preference that they have needs to be a form of self-expression. So we know that our students are so special and so unique, and they all have different personalities. We see that in a school uniform, right? And so uniforms actually help cultivate humility in our students by drawing attention away from that self-promotion, by expressing themselves through other ways, and it cultivates, we get to focus on the cultivation of character.
Our culture often celebrates individual expression. How does a uniform fit into that conversation?
Individuality is not erased by a uniform. Uniforms remind students that they belong to a community. And classical Christian education forms persons, not personal brands. So really, the goal isn't uniformity of personality. The goal is uniformity of purpose.
One of the most misunderstood aspects of school uniforms is the topic of modesty. Okay, so this question is for our director of our school, Amber. So when people hear the word modesty, they often bring cultural assumptions to the conversation.
How do you approach that topic with the high school students?
Well, we know that this is countercultural and recognize that many of our families of upper school students may be navigating very difficult conversations about uniforms and modesty at home. But modesty is not primarily about rules, it begins in the heart. How we represent or present ourselves communicates something about what we value. Modesty encourages students to be known for their character rather than their appearance. So the reason why we have modesty or uniform standards is because we love others. We have a disposition of charity toward others and not ourselves.
I agree, Amber. As a parent of high schoolers, what I've learned is that these tough conversations that happen at home actually give me an opportunity to also step in and remind them of who they are. And because modesty really does start with them being reminded of their identity in Christ. And it starts with them thinking correctly about who they are. And they get to make those decisions starting even with how they dress. So thank you for that. So why is this conversation particularly important during the high school years?
Well, learning modesty helps students develop character traits such as humility, self-discipline, wisdom, and consideration of others. So teenagers right now are forming lifelong habits and convictions. The social pressures are increasing significantly, but modesty helps students understand their value and identity come from being created in God's image, not from appearance and not from attention from others. So students, they need parents and the school to work together. Consistency between home and school will create clarity. So the goal is not merely compliance, it is wisdom.
What is one message you hope families take away regarding our dress code and how they might partner with KCA to promote unity on this subject?
Uniforms help create an environment where learning can flourish.
They also provide daily opportunities to practice responsibility, humility, and obedience.
Uniforms remind us that our outward appearance should reflect an inward concern for loving God and loving our neighbor.
Uniforms are about more than appearance. They foster community and cultivate virtue that support both learning and spiritual formation. Our hope is that the uniforms aren't experienced as a burden, but as a blessing that unites our school and invites parents into the shared work of educating and discipling our students.